Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Fairy Tale 100 Years Quest, Chapter 72. When we last left our heroes, we kind of spent a little bit of time with each of our fights with the three Moonlit Beauty Gods. We saw the overwhelming power of Mimi in her fight with Lucy and Taurus. We had an absolutely baffling section with Natsu and Gray squaring off with Hakune, as Hakune summoned, like, snow dolls of all of the women in their lives. She just summoned Juvia for Gray. But for Natsu, she summoned Lucy and Lisana. Okay, makes sense. Urza, I guess that tracks. Mira and Wendy, which was a choice. That was, beyond all else, a choice. It didn't work, as Natsu was like, they're just dolls, they're not our friends. And Natsu was very clear that he saw them all in a platonic light. But either way, burned them all, and then Hakune switched into this, like, ice bikini to kill them herself. And then Yoko, we saw Yoko's fight with, or Urza and Wendy's fight with Yoko. And Yoko is summoning these super coolly designed yokai, to, like, sap Wendy and Urza of their energy, and they're, like, lying on the ground defeated. That was the real highlight of the chapter. I love those yokai designs. So let's jump right on into Chapter 72, Moonlit Beauty Gods. Our picture here is of Lucy and Taurus, as Lucy's doing some kind of calligraphy, I think. I'm not quite familiar enough with the art of calligraphy to really describe it well. It's finally New Year's. Hope you enjoy next year even more. Alright. That was my bad Taurus impression. And so we open with, completely away from everything going on last chapter. On top of searching for Selene, we've been separated from everyone, and it's Ferris and Toka, who we have not seen since the hand happened. Ferris looks around, what to do? And Toka tells her, there's nothing we can do. No. And Ferris starts to walk. Let us go to the Whiteout Temple. What's that? It is the home where we Whiteout priestesses live. Yeah, that was kind of obvious, Toka. Though I was kind of under the impression that Ferris was the last of them. The Grand White Priestess might be able to help us. Okay, so there's a lot more going on with the Whiteout. The question on my mind, though, is why did Selene signal out Ferris? Is Ferris just strong enough to be useful, but not strong enough to pose a threat? Maybe? I don't know, part of me thought that, Selene was threatened by Ferris and her whiteout powers. So if there's entire cults of them, maybe Ferris is less threatening to Selene? I'll have to go back to chapter 68, I think it was, to really refresh my thoughts on Selene being slightly threatened by Ferris. But anyway, we then check back in with the fight with Mimi. Mimi throws a punch. Chest! Eek! And Lucy kind of, like, blocks. And just, like, the force of air from Mimi's punch sends Lucy flying. Mimi kicks, and Lucy barely dodges, and then Mimi does this kind of, like, palm on the ground, and Lucy is sent flying. And Lucy catches herself on a tree branch. Mimi looks up at her. Such a splendid girl. Yeah, she's horny. She is horny on main. And Lucy is changed to Star Dress, Aquarius form. Oh, another sexy form. And Lucy, gets her magic power ready. Aquametria! And gets this whole, like, wave of water, pushed towards Mimi. And Mimi swallows it. Like she's a fucking dragon slayer. And Lucy just shocked. She drank it? Yes, it's rich in minerals. And then she readies another fist, and like a palm, a movable fist, despite the fact that it's distinctly not a fist. And this whole, like, blast of energy comes out of her palm, blasting Lucy away. Ugh! And the trees all, like, shatter around her. Wah! And Mimi just kind of flexes. And then Lucy calls, open, gate of the White Ram, Ares! And Ares pops up with a bunch of, cushiony clouds that Lucy falls onto. I'm sorry. I hoped it could serve as a cushion. And Mimi watches this girl. She can control yokai just like Yoko. Interestingly, Mimi didn't really figure that out from seeing Taurus, presumably because she did not see Taurus be summoned. But either way, it's an interesting thing that she hasn't. Like, Taurus even looks more monstrous than Ares does, so it's kind of weird that she hadn't noticed. But Ares replies, "I'm not a yokai, I'm sorry." And Lucy tells her, "Ares, counter! Wool bomb!" And all of this wool comes, like, rushing toward... I'm doing this motion a lot, I've noticed this episode. This video, I mean. Anyway, a bunch of wool, like, rushes towards Mimi, and it just swallows her up as Mimi just blushes in ecstasy. It feels so good. Followed by... And then she summons Scorpio. We are! And he does this whole, this motion again, like sand tornado out of his tail at Mimi. Enough. And Mimi just punches away some of the wool, and then does this little tornado thing. Immovable hurricane. And sucks up Lucy, Ares, and Scorpio all at the same time. Hee! Whoop! And then Mimi, like, jumps up from the center of the tornado, and Lucy summons Capricorn. Capricorn appears, just to block Mimi's fist. Bah! What have we here? Well now. And this is Mimi's response. Well now. It seems that for having such a thin body, you have a decent grasp of martial arts. And the two of them, trade fists, and Capricorn goes for a roundhouse kick, and then we just see their clash as they're going at each other. And then Mimi responds, "But you lack discipline," and she smacks Capricorn into the ground. Lucy yells, "Oh no!" And Mimi looks down at Capricorn. "No, it is your summoner who lacks experience." Huh? And Capricorn tries to rise, beaten and bruised. "Milady is still maturing." But then he just falls back to the ground. "You poor thing. If you had a stronger summoner, you would have been able to exert your strength to its fullest." This is kind of the first... I feel like it's, at the very least, the first time in a good long while that we've seen, Lucy's strength be, like, specifically diminished by a villain in this way. Maybe Mimi is right, but like what I'm wondering here is, are we going to move into kind of a training arc for Lucy here? Because Lucy is completely outmatched here. She's tried, star dresses, she's tried four consecutive spirits, and nothing is even affecting Mimi. She, her and Stardress Taurus and Taurus himself together, trying to push back Mimi's hands, and just completely toppled by her. So I don't know. I feel like this is kind of one of those moments of realizing how outmatched we are. Which is the kind of thing, I don't know, the Moonlit Beauty Gods, maybe it's just because they've all of a sudden appeared, are kind of, they still feel very much like minor arc villains, like, not that different from the God Seeds. They don't really seem like the villains that make, Team Natsu realize that they're out of their depth. Though I don't know, given that there's a whole new type of magic on Elentier, it could just be, Natsu and the gang learning about spiritual arts. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure how much sense I'm making right now. I'm only vaguely making sense to myself. My point is, Lucy's getting crushed, and her weaknesses are being brought out in a way that feels like it's building towards something. But Capricorn just responds, in response to, if you had a stronger summoner, you would have been able to exert your strength to its fullest. No. To be able to serve Milady is a blessing. Lucy just kind of gives a little tiny grin, and Mimi just huffs. Immovable duet, and she just whacks him. Translation note, the Japanese attack name is Fudo Rendon. Rendon meaning a duet performed on a single piano. Alright. Just a little translation note. As Capricorn screams, "Whoa! Capricorn!" And Capricorn falls, like steam rising from his body, as Lucy asks, "My spirit's strength is connected to my power?" Which means Lucy is also bringing up the same issues that I was bringing up just a minute ago. So I might have actually been onto something with my ramblings. Mimi asks, "Who knows? But that is the case for my comrade Yoko. Her summoning abilities become the strength of the yokai she calls." So yeah, we're seeing another connection between Yoko and Lucy. Even to pair with the obvious, they're both summoners. Maybe Lucy's power is, or the spirit's power is related to Lucy. Which again, in the series like 600 chapter run, is something that's never really been brought up before. So I'm just curious how that's all going to play out. Anyway, even though I can summon spirits whenever I want without my keys, I'm still not good enough. And Mimi just lets out a and does another one of her immovable fist attacks, sending Lucy flying. Kya! And Lucy hits the ground. And Mimi looks at her. "Then you require discipline." And Lucy stands up, shaking. "I thought I'd been doing my best in my own way, but..." And then she falls back to the ground. Yeah, this is a big "I'm not strong enough" moment. "My power is still so weak," she says with like tears in her eyes. And then, as if the chapter remembered is titled Moonlit Beauty Gods, we check in with the Hakune fight. As we see, we leave Lucy at her weakest. "My power is still so weak." Huddled on the ground, battered, bruised, not done a single speck of damage to Mimi. And now we're back with Hakune. The blizzard's going. Hakune is still in her ice key as she walks towards Natsu and Gray. And Natsu, "What is this? Her magic power." And Gray picks up, "It's cold. Her magic power is freezing?" "Diamond effect." We see like snowflakes materialize around her. And both Natsu and even Gray start to freeze. I can't use my fire." And Gray responds, "No way. My ice resistance is better than most." And Happy just, and Hakune just smiles at them. My spirit arts freeze magic power. Curse power, spirit arts. Indeed, any power that cannot be seen. I like the reminder that curse power exists. Just because it hasn't really been brought up since Tartaros. And I do love me some Tartaros arc. Though that being said, isn't Demon Slayer magic curse power? Like, is she bringing that up because Gray does have curse power thanks to his Devil Slayer magic? Or was Silver's curse power just related to being a zombie? I don't remember exactly. Anyway, indeed, any power that cannot be seen. Natsu just screams, "Wah! Damn it!" As Gray's response is the two of them just fully freeze. So yeah, I feel like this whole chapter is just Fairy Tail's utter defeat. As they're just frozen statues in the cold. And Hakune like puts her hands up on Natsu's cheeks. Such a lovely gentleman. May you sleep in my ice for eternity. And we see the frozen Natsu and Gray, the defeated Urza and Wendy, the collapsed Lucy. And then we just see Selene off in her palace. My, they couldn't defeat the Moonlit Beauty Gods. That wasn't interesting at all. More. I want to distort them more. Listen up, my lovely girls. Don't kill them. Bring them to me. I just had a great idea. It will be a cruel and delightful party. The last thing we see is Yoko listening to this. And yeah, that's the end of the chapter. And I imagine that will be the moment that will, in some roundabout way, seal Selene's fate. Like she has every opportunity to kill Team Natsu here. They're all defeated. Um, Gray, Natsu, and Happy are frozen. Urza, Wendy, and Carla are unconscious. Lucy is at least conscious, but completely and utterly outmatched. Um, but because she wants to, because Selene wants to like rub it in or torture them more, something is going to go wrong for Selene. But yeah, this whole chapter is really just dedicated to Team Natsu's failure, especially Lucy's. We spend a long time on Lucy. I think part of that is just, unlike Hakune, who can just freeze Natsu and Gray immediately, Mimi has to like beat her opponent down. And so it just naturally takes longer, especially because Lucy doesn't really fight as herself. But yeah, honestly, I really do love Lucy's fight with Mimi. She's completely outmatched in a way that we don't really see in Fairy Tail. Even when the heroes lose, they like put up a fight and then it's easy to see their eventual coming back and winning isn't completely out of left field. The occasional, because she's Urza notwithstanding, people are. I feel like people are still bitter because she's Urza, like 6 years later. But that stuff notwithstanding, it's rare to see someone on Team Natsu so utterly crushed like Lucy is. Like it's even different from Natsu and Gray, who are just frozen instantly. Or even Urza and Wendy, who went down pretty quick. I'm trying to remember exactly the exact nature of Urza and Wendy's defeat. And they really were just kind of, they were knocked unconscious with the smoke. So they weren't really bested in a physical fight. They were kind of, outplayed, looking back at 71. And the same thing kind of with Natsu and Gray. They didn't really stand much of a chance with, her intense freezing power. But Lucy is just beaten down. All of her spirits beaten to a pulp by the intense, absurd strength of Mimi. And it's something we don't often get in Fairy Tail. To see our heroes so utterly, even especially physically beaten down. Also, there's just some great moments here. I love Mimi drinking the aquametria. It's just really funny. But yeah, it's just a really brutal fight. The only other thing in this chapter that's not related to the Beauty Gods is this little bit of Ferris and Selene. Not Ferris and Selene, Ferris and Toka. That's teasing the Grand White Priestess, and more of Whiteout. And if Selene is a little nervous about the Whiteout powers, then the Grand White Priestess might be related to how we get out of this mess. Especially Natsu and Gray, who are frozen by Hakune's spiritual arts. Removing the spiritual arts could undo that for the two of them. It wouldn't help Lucy versus Mimi, because that's just pure physical power for the most part. But it might even help with Yoko if they could cancel out the summoning. But yeah, this chapter was really just dedicated to Team Natsu's complete and utter defeat. That will hopefully make their eventual rise from the ashes all the more satisfying. So until then, that's all I have to say for this chapter. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, or, do whatever makes you happy, Or remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!